Frozen Abyss. Polar Bear vs. Cerberus. Clash of the Underworld and the Icebound Wild. Beneath a bleak, storm-tossed sky where dark clouds swirl like restless spirits over a desolate, icebound expanse, an epic confrontation unfolds. A battle that seems to have been written in the very fabric of myth and carved into the frozen bones of the world. In this grim, dark fantasy realm, where the unforgiving cold of the Arctic meets the infernal heat of the underworld, two colossal forces prepare to collide. On one side stands the mighty polar bear, an ancient and indomitable beast forged in the harsh crucible of endless winter. Its massive form is a living embodiment of nature's raw, unyielding power, a creature that has ruled the frozen north for countless eons. Its every step echoing the primal rhythms of a world untouched by time. On the other side lurks Cerberus, the three-headed guardian of the underworld, a monstrous hound born of Greek legend whose ferocity is rivaled only by its dark magic. With three snarling heads, each capable of delivering deadly, venomous bites, and a sinuous, serpentine tail that whips with lethal intent, Cerberus is the embodiment of infernal might and the eternal sentinel of realms beyond mortal ken. In the shadow of a dying winter, the polar bear roams its endless domain, a kingdom of snow and ice where the wind howls like the mournful cries of lost souls and the aurora paints eerie, shifting patterns across the heavens. The bear's fur, as white as the untouched drifts that blanket the barren landscape, shimmers in the pale light of a weak winter sun. Muscles ripple beneath its thick coat as it lumbers forward, each deliberate step a testament to millennia of survival amid the brutal extremes of nature. Its eyes, deep and unyielding like frozen lakes, harbor the fierce determination of an apex predator whose every instinct has been honed by the relentless pressures of the wild. For this noble beast, the frozen wilderness is both sanctuary and battlefield, a realm where every heartbeat is a victory over the encroaching desolation of time. Far below, in the nether regions where the mortal world meets the abyss, Cerberus roams the dark corridors of the underworld. This unholy hound, the monstrous guardian of Hades' domain, is shrouded in the malevolent aura of cursed magic. Its three heads, each a ferocious amalgam of snarling fangs and baleful eyes, are the instruments of terror for any soul foolish enough to trespass. The very sight of Cerberus is enough to freeze the blood in the veins of gods and men alike. For its gaze is rumored to be imbued with a cursed potency, a single look that can turn the bravest warrior into a lifeless statue of despair. At times, myth speaks of a sinuous tail, coiled like a venomous serpent and adorned with barbs and spikes, that lashes out with the indiscriminate fury of the underworld itself. In its dark, relentless charge, Cerberus represents the inescapable doom of death and the grim finality of the afterlife, a creature born of ancient curses and eternal night. Legends whispered by those who dwell in the realm of dark fantasy tell of an otherworldly convergence, an impossible encounter between the tangible force of nature and the spectral power of cursed magic. It is said that on rare occasions, the boundaries that separate the worlds grow thin. Perhaps the polar bear, in its ceaseless wanderings over the icy wastes, strays far enough from its frozen kingdom to inadvertently step through a rift into the underworld. Or maybe the hellish Cerberus, driven by a malicious desire to spread its terror beyond the gates of Hades, slithers forth into the realm of endless ice. In either case, the collision of these two titanic beings, one the living symbol of the wild, the other the unholy arbiter of death, promises a spectacle of violence and awe. A dark ballet of feral might and infernal sorcery that will shake the very foundations of both worlds. Imagine, if you will, a setting where the stark, frigid beauty of a polar landscape is shattered by an unnatural intrusion. A rip in the fabric of reality where the heat of the underworld seeps in like a malevolent fog. The horizon, usually dominated by the serene hues of winter's blue and white, becomes an arena of conflicting elements, scorching embers and bitter frost. The acrid stench of brimstone mixing with the clean, sharp scent of pine and ice. Here, on this precarious threshold between life and the abyss, the stage is set for the ultimate contest of dominance. The polar bear, oblivious to the dark portents at first, ambles through a labyrinth of ice formations and snowdrifts that stretch out like a vast, unending wasteland. Each step is accompanied by the crunch of brittle snow and the groan of ancient ice fracturing under its colossal weight. The creature's mind, though not burdened with mortal thought, is attuned to the subtle changes in its environment, the slight tremor in the ground, the sudden stillness in the wind, the distant echo of a low, guttural growl that doesn't belong to the wild but to something far older and far more sinister. And as the polar bear nears the edge of its known domain, it senses the presence of an otherworldly force, a presence that radiates a chill not of cold, but of despair and foreboding. From the murky depths of a fissure in the ice, where the veil between the worlds has been torn asunder, Cerberus emerges. The beast moves with a balletic, predatory grace, its three heads rising and falling in unison like a terrible chorus of demonic voices. Each head bears rows of razor-sharp teeth, dripping with venom that glistens in the faint light, a poison so potent that it is said even a single drop can poison the soul. The creature's eyes, burning with the ferocity of eternal flame and the darkness of the deepest abyss, fix upon the intruder from the realm of the living. In that moment, the world seems to hold its breath as two forces, so utterly different yet equally unstoppable, confront each other on a field where the laws of nature and magic converge. The polar bear, now fully aware of the threat that has invaded its dominion, rears up on its hind legs, a towering figure against the desolate backdrop. Its roar is a primal declaration, a challenge to the dark forces that dare to encroach upon the frozen wilderness. In its eyes burns the fire of survival and the indomitable will to protect a realm that has nurtured it through countless winters. The bear's massive claws, capable of rending flesh and shattering bone, dig into the icy surface as it prepares to charge. Every fiber of its being vibrates with the promise of retribution, a promise that nature's champion will not be cowed by the cursed spawn of the underworld. Cerberus, undeterred by the bear's display of raw power, lets out a chorus of savage growls, a sound that reverberates through the icy chasms and stirs the souls of those unfortunate enough to hear it. Its three heads coordinate their advance with a deadly precision, each one poised to strike in a flurry of vicious bites. The creature's body, a mass of sinewy muscles and scaled hide that shimmers with an unholy luster, twists and turns with an agility that belies its monstrous size. As it moves forward, the basilisk-like venom drips from its fangs, pooling into glistening rivulets on the frozen ground, a foreboding omen of the death that follows in its wake. A battle of such scale is not decided by brute strength alone, for each combatant brings to the field not only physical might but also the accumulated essence of its realm. The polar bear, forged in the crucible of nature's fury, represents the unyielding, eternal force of the wild, a force that has endured through the rise and fall of civilizations and the shifting of countless seasons. Its very presence is a reminder that life, however fragile, is a testament to the relentless will to survive against insurmountable odds. Cerberus, in contrast, is the personification of cursed fate, a creature that serves as the gatekeeper of death and the inevitable end that awaits all mortals. Its existence is a constant reminder that no matter how strong or noble, every life is ultimately subject to the dark, inexorable pull of the underworld. As the polar bear and Cerberus draw ever closer, the battlefield itself becomes a living tableau of chaos and contrast. The icy plains, once a realm of serene, crystalline beauty, are transformed into a stage for apocalyptic strife. Jagged shards of ice break free from the frozen ground, soaring like lethal projectiles in the wake of each thunderous impact. The cold, clear air is rent by the sounds of savage roars and the cacophony of clashing titans, a discordant symphony where every note vibrates with the intensity of ancient grudges and primal instincts. Shadows twist and contort across the fractured ice, mirroring the tumultuous dance of light and dark that plays out upon the stage of this fateful encounter. In the heart of the fray, the polar bear charges with an unstoppable force, a living avalanche of muscle and fury. Its colossal paws strike the ground with such impact that the ice seems to shudder and groan under the assault. With each stride, it draws closer to Cerberus, its eyes fixed with an unwavering determination to vanquish the monstrous intruder. The bear's maw opens wide, revealing rows of teeth that have been honed over countless battles, ready to deliver a crushing bite that could shatter even the most formidable of foes. Yet, as it surges forward, It must contend with a foe that attacks from all angles, 3 heads of unholy might, each snapping and lunging with a speed and ferocity that defies the natural order. Cerberus responds to the bear's charge with a barrage of multi-directional assaults. One head darts forward with lightning speed, its jaws opening wide to deliver a vicious bite aimed at the bear's shoulder. Another swings to the side, its venomous fangs poised to strike at a vulnerable flank, while the third head rears up, letting out a guttural snarl that seems to summon the very darkness of the underworld. The coordination of these 3 lethal appendages creates an almost impossible challenge for the polar bear, an onslaught so multifaceted that even its immense strength seems to waver under the pressure. The air is filled with the sound of tearing flesh and the metallic tang of blood mingling with the icy scent of winter. As the bear is forced to pivot and twist, trying desperately to avoid the simultaneous strikes that threaten to overwhelm it. Yet, the polar bear is not a creature easily subdued. Its battle-hardened instincts, honed over countless winters in a realm where only the strongest survive, compel it to adapt swiftly to the overwhelming assault. With a mighty roar that reverberates like an earthquake across the frozen plain, the bear twists its massive frame and lunges sideways, a sudden, daring maneuver designed to catch one of Cerberus's heads off guard. In that fleeting moment, as the bear's powerful jaws clamp down with crushing force, one of the beast's 3 heads is caught in a vice-like grip. The clash of titanic strength is palpable as the polar bear's fangs and claws pierce through scales and flesh, drawing forth a spray of venom and blood that glitters in the cold light like malevolent jewels. The furious bite reverberates through the cavernous silence of the ice, a defiant roar against the tide of darkness. But Cerberus is far from defeated. The monstrous guardian of the underworld, even when wounded, exudes an aura of dread and indomitable malice. With a renewed burst of savage energy, the other 2 heads pivot in unison, unleashing a synchronized attack that drives the polar bear back with a force that nearly shatters the very ice beneath its paws. The creature's venomous saliva, a corrosive mixture of ancient curse and dark magic, begins to seep into the bear's wounds, threatening to sap its strength and turn its mighty frame into a brittle husk. Yet, in the heart of the battle, the polar bear's determination burns brighter than the darkest abyss. Its survival hinges not only on brute strength but on an instinctual connection to the untamed wilderness, a bond forged through endless winters and countless hardships. A promise that life will endure even in the face of death itself. As the titanic struggle rages on, the boundaries between the mortal world and the realm of the damned blur into a chaotic maelstrom of violence and myth. The frozen landscape is scarred by the aftermath of their clash, cracked fissures of ice that glow with the residual heat of combat, and swirling clouds of frost and venom that hang heavy in the air like a shroud of impending doom. In this surreal tableau, the polar bear's roars and Cerberus's unearthly growls blend into a dirge for a world teetering on the brink of collapse. A world where the ancient laws of nature and the dark decrees of the underworld wage an eternal war for dominion. In one harrowing exchange, the polar bear, mustering every ounce of its formidable might, executes a desperate counterattack. With a leap that defies its enormous mass, it launches itself high into the air, a defiant arc of raw power and primal fury. For a split second, time seems to suspend as the bear soars above the battlefield, its eyes locked onto one of Cerberus's writhing heads. The bear's momentum carries it forward like a living comet, its massive jaws opening in anticipation of a crushing bite. Meanwhile, Cerberus, sensing the imminent threat, twists its monstrous form in a display of infernal agility. One of its heads darts upward, its venomous fangs bared in a snarl, while the other 2 converge to counter the airborne assault. The ensuing collision is a cataclysm of sound and fury, a moment when the forces of nature and the dark powers of myth clash in a spectacle that defies mortal understanding. The impact reverberates through the frozen wastes as the polar bear's jaws snap shut around a surge of Cerberus's unholy flesh. In that instant, the world is filled with the roar of triumph and the cry of agony, a visceral reminder that in the realm of dark fantasy, every victory is hard won and every defeat carries the weight of ancient curses. The bear's strength, honed through endless battles with nature's harshest elements, is pitted against the relentless, multi-headed assault of a creature whose very existence is steeped in the lore of Hades. Amid the swirling chaos of blood, venom, and shattered ice, the struggle for supremacy unfolds with a savage elegance, a brutal dance where each combatant is both predator and prey, hero and harbinger of doom. As the combatants exchange furious blows, the very landscape around them bears witness to their titanic contest. The sky above is a tumult of dark, swirling clouds that seem to mirror the internal chaos of the underworld. While below, the ice trembles with each thunderous impact, a silent, broken mirror reflecting the epic strife. Flickers of infernal light dance upon the fractured ice, mingling with the ghostly gleam of frost, as if the heavens themselves were waging a war of light and shadow over the fate of the world. In this grim domain, where every sound, every shard of ice, and every droplet of venom is imbued with the spirit of dark fantasy, the battle between the polar bear and Cerberus transcends the mere physical. It becomes an allegory, a timeless testament to the eternal conflict between the natural order and the corrupting power of cursed magic. The struggle reaches a fevered pitch as the polar bear, despite its injuries and the relentless onslaught of Cerberus's three fearsome heads, summons an inner reservoir of strength born of the frozen wild, with a roar that echoes like the howl of 1,000 winter storms. It channels every fiber of its being into one final, desperate charge, a counterattack that seeks to shatter the dark enchantment and reclaim the honor of its ancient realm. The bear's limbs, enormous and unyielding, blur with ferocious speed as it surges forward, its eyes burning with the fierce determination of a warrior who has nothing left to lose but the hope of victory. At that very moment, Cerberus, too, unleashes the full fury of its cursed nature. Its three heads bellow in unison, a symphony of infernal growls and venomous hisses that reverberates through the chasms of the underworld and the frozen reaches of the mortal realm. In the chaos that ensues, the battlefield becomes a swirling vortex of clashing titans, an arena where the eternal struggle between life and death, nature and magic, is fought out in excruciating detail. The polar bear's massive claws slash through the air, leaving trails of shattered ice and droplets of blood in their wake, while Cerberus's fanged maws snap viciously, each bite laced with the promise of doom. The sound of their collision is a cacophony of raw power, a primal chorus that speaks to the very soul of the frozen wild and the dark heart of the underworld. Every moment is fraught with the potential for both salvation and annihilation, a delicate balance where the scales of fate hang by a single, trembling thread. As the battle limps toward its final, shattering climax, the outcome remains uncertain, a testament to the fact that in the realms of dark fantasy, victory is never absolute and defeat is but a prelude to another cycle of rebirth. The polar bear, battered and scarred, stands as a monument to the enduring power of nature, a living embodiment of the wild, unyielding spirit that has withstood the ravages of time and the relentless assault of death. Cerberus, though wounded and weary, still exudes an aura of infernal menace, a dark sentinel whose very presence is a reminder that the cursed powers of the underworld can never be fully vanquished. In this grim contest of titans, where the frozen north meets the burning depths of the underworld, the question of dominion remains open to interpretation. If the polar bear, with its raw, visceral might, were to wander into the realms of darkness, could it adapt and overcome the curses that lurk in the shadow of Hades? Or if Cerberus were to breach the icy borders of the mortal world, would its unholy presence sow chaos and subjugate the lands with its multi-pronged terror? The eternal dance of power and resistance plays out on a stage where the forces of nature and magic are in constant, tumultuous flux, a ballet of destruction and rebirth that defies a simple conclusion. In the aftermath of this colossal encounter, as the echoes of roars and snarls fade into the stillness of a blood-stained winter, the legend of the polar bear versus Cerberus is etched into the annals of dark fantasy. It is a tale that will be whispered in the dim corridors of ancient temples, recounted by bards in the flickering light of tavern hearths, and celebrated in the murals of forgotten fortresses, a story of an eternal struggle where the unyielding power of the natural world clashes with the insidious, eternal curse of magic. And so, as the frozen winds carry the final whispers of battle across a desolate, scarred landscape, one truth remains immutable: the realms of ice and shadow, of life and death, are bound together by an unbreakable, eternal covenant. The polar bear, with its indomitable strength and unyielding will, and Cerberus, with its dark, multifaceted fury and ancient curse, will forever symbolize the delicate, tumultuous balance between two worlds, one that thrives on the raw power of nature and another that revels in the mysteries of the underworld. In the grand tapestry of myth and legend, their fated clash is but one chapter, a timeless reminder that in every corner of existence, from the frozen peaks of the Arctic to the fiery chasms of the netherworld, the struggle for supremacy is eternal, and the spirit of life, no matter how battered, will always find a way to roar against the darkness.